Hey guys, this is cycle 1, week 15, science experiment number 128, prints. This experiment is going to determine how fossils were preserved. So the kids are going to get to make their own fossils. And so what you're going to have is some modeling clay. Every student will get their own little bit of modeling clay. It's important that we have paper plates and paper cups, which I will provide for you. Every student will get some kind of seashell. Thankfully, we live in Florida, so those are easy to come by. Petroleum jelly, which what I will do is I will have my science ladies scoop some petroleum jelly onto each student's plate. And we're going to probably do this one. I mean, I don't necessarily want to do this outside, but it can get a little messy. And we are making plaster. We're using plaster of Paris. An important note on that is we're throwing everything in the trash. Nothing will be rinsed off, because the plaster of Paris will clog sinks. We want to avoid that. So please remember that everything is disposable. The spoons we're using, it's fine. The paper plate, the paper cups, everything is getting thrown away. The tricky part is it takes about 20 to 30 minutes for the plaster of Paris to set. So this is going to have to be made in class. We won't be able to prepare anything in advance. So you're going to be using the procedure in the book to very specifically measure things out and stir them right there in class. And so this would be a good experiment to have you guys have science times only if we don't have enough parents to help in the room to mix the plaster of Paris with the water. So I'll get to that in a minute. And I think that's it. We have the petroleum jelly, the plastic spoon, the plaster of Paris, which what I'll do is I will have a container like this, and I'm going to have 3 of them. And I think that's why it would be easier if we have science and art times the week that we do this. And part of the reason too is because a lot of the art materials we're going to be sharing. So during this quarter, we are going to be having science and art times. And so I will have 3 of these. That way 3 classes will do science while 3 do art, and then we'll swap. So you'll have a container with it's plaster of Paris as a powder. And then you're going to need water for this. And so I think it would probably, each student is going to get 2 spoons of water. So, we'll probably just grab the basins. That way it'll make it easier, and everyone will get their own basin, for this. So that, well, now we'll just get enough basins for the 3 classes. Anyway, so you'll have a basin with water in it to measure out the water. And I think I covered everything. So the modeling clay, paper plate, paper cups. One will have the water in it. Every student will get their own cup and I just have random paper cups. So whatever paper cups you get, that's what you're getting. And so each student will get a paper cup because you're going to let them measure this out themselves. You might have a parent maybe help them with the measuring part of it, and they can do the stirring. So what we'll do is you'll have an empty cup, and then maybe from the basin, you'll just get your 2 spoons of water. I just have a cup for the sake of doing this myself. So it says place a piece of clay about the size of a lemon on the paper plate, which I have done. I've flattened it just a bit. This is kind of hard. I'm hoping I can get this to soften up a bit. And you're going to rub the outside of a seashell in some petroleum jelly. So again, you're going to, where'd my seashell go? Here it is. So what you're going to do is the outside part of it. Thanks, Rebecca. I have one. You're going to rub it in the petroleum jelly. No, Rebecca. I have helpers with every single one of them. And it's really just to make sure it doesn't stick to the clay and the impression is left in the clay. So you really don't need a whole lot, but it's already going to be on their plate. So this is going to be like their workspace here. Can you see what I'm doing? So I'm rubbing it in the petroleum jelly that I already have on my plate here. And then it says to press the seashell into the clay. So I'm going to press this into my clay. This is kind of tough here. I will make sure to have fresh clay for you guys. That way every student doesn't have as hard of a time as I'm having at this moment. This was an older piece of clay I was trying to use to not waste the materials. All right, so they're going to press it into the clay and then carefully remove the seashell so that a clear imprint of the shell remains in the clay. So we're just going to, that's part of the purpose of that petroleum jelly. So as you're lifting it, it doesn't get stuck and it has left an imprint there. And the fun part is coming up in a minute here. Becca, please stop. I don't need you to. You can do it when I'm done. So you're going to, guys, quiet please. So what you're going to do is, this is important. You're going to add the plaster of Paris to the water, not the other way around. So empty cup. It says to take 4 spoons of plaster with 4 spoons of water. I wish they had worded it the opposite of that, because according to the container, you have to add the water first. So 2 spoons of water. Important note. Make sure you write that down in your notes. So 2 spoons of water. 1, 2 spoons of water. Stop, please. And then you're going to add 4 spoons of plaster. So it's a 2-to-1 ratio. And I'm going to make sure that when I'm adding it, it's not overflowing because I want it to be about the same amount of water. 2, 3, and 4. And so according to the box of directions, it says to stir until the lumps are all gone. It'll be a pancake batter consistency, and it will set in about 20 minutes. When we did this 3 years ago, I distinctly remember not remembering the measurements correctly, and it was way too thick, and it did not work. So once I stir it, I'm ready to do the next step. Stir it, and it says right in here, do not pour it down the sink. It will clog the drain. So please, everything goes in the trash when we're done. You can wait for it to set and be hardened, and then goes right in the trash. All right, so pour the plaster mixture into the imprint in the clay. So that's what we're going to do next. I'm going to pour this in here. This is the only science experiment you're doing this week. So,
that's cool.
Yeah, and it's like the perfect amount too. And it'll take about 20 minutes. So this would be when you've done this. I didn't specify when I first started out. I want to kind of smooth this flat here. Okay, can you kind of see? I poured the plaster of Paris right into that imprint that I've made with my shell. And then it says very specifically, throw the paper cup and spoon away. Just toss them. We don't need them again. And then allow the plaster to harden about 15 to 20 minutes. Give it the 20 minutes. We didn't wait long enough the last time we did this. And then you're going to separate the clay from the plaster mold. Now, technically, we probably could reuse the clay. I don't know if that will work. And so what I will do is after I record this video, I'm going to try to reuse this clay, and I will let you know at our meeting if we can reuse it. And that'll determine how much clay I need. But don't worry, you'll have enough clay for every student. The layer of clay and the plaster itself are both examples of fossils because there'll be an impression still left in the clay. And the clay represents the soft mud of ancient times. Organisms made imprints in the mud. If nothing collected in the prints, the mud dried, forming what is now a cast fossil. And when sediments fill the imprint, a sedimentary rock formed. And I actually had an example of that I wanted to show you. Rebecca, do you see a container of seashells? Oh, it's right next to you. So I found this at the beach, which is so cool. But if you have something like this at home, this would be a great time to bring visuals for your students. And so you'll see sediments inside of the shell, like inside of it, which is just incredibly cool. So I love to go to the beach and collect shells. My original plan was like, take my kids to the beach and we'll collect a bunch of shells and we'll use them for CC. At our meeting, we're going to talk about the best way to go about this because it might be fun if you guys bring your own shells. So it's less for me to do, but it's not a big deal because I'm sure I probably have more than enough shells for every single student on campus somewhere lying around my house. I think we did that the last time. I just borrowed my kids' shells. But what was really fun was letting them bring the shells home along with the mold, the fossil that they've created. So I will do it differently this time. If you would like to bring your own shells, let me know. We'll discuss that at our meeting. But that's pretty much it. I mean, it takes a while. And so while this is setting, and I actually haven't been paying attention to the clock, I'm going to give it a solid 20 minutes at least. Then you can really get into great discussions. There's some excellent pictures in the back of your science sheets of different kinds of fossils. If you have, this one is a bug trapped in sap that hardened into amber stone. If you have anything like that at home to bring, please, please do, because the pictures don't do them justice. You could talk about what it means to be an archaeologist and how they find petrified fossils and how you can observe them. I thought I had more in here. I have lots of different kinds of shells, but I know for sure my kids have some fossils lying around the house. But really taking the time to ask really good questions and connecting it with the memory work. What the different types of rocks, sedimentary rocks. So I talked about the sediments before. It might be good to talk about that. And talking about how these fossils preserved in the layers of the soil give us a look at Earth's history. And you can get into discussion about history of the Earth and how long the Earth has been around. Because as you know, it can be very confusing when kids hear it talk about dinosaurs from millions of years ago. So if you have any good books that have resources about fossils, bring them. And I would ask that I don't know if you're going to view this video before our meeting or not, probably not, but as you're watching this again, it would be good for you to try to pull in some resources for this, because otherwise you're just sitting around. This is the only experiment you're doing for week 15. So it's going to provide lots of opportunity for discussion, but then also the cleanup efforts. It's not a ton to clean up. The one thing I will do is try to bring a bunch of like newspaper. I do have drop cloths, but I feel like, I don't know that I necessarily want to bring those for this. We probably could. But this is going to take a while to dry. So I will bring this to our tutor meeting, so you'll get a chance to see it. But it would be good to start the cleanup efforts after you have allowed this to set, putting everything away. And as I mentioned earlier, this will be a shared material kind of experiment. So as soon as you're done with your materials, you're going to gather everything up and put it together in your, the basins that we put the water in. That's what I'm going to use to deliver the material, have the moms deliver the science materials that week. So you're going to have to empty out the water. And then once it goes to the new class, that's really the only prep work they're going to have to do, is to distribute the materials, put the petroleum jelly, a scoop, not even a full spoonful, like just a little bit, enough to just, because I put way too much on my plate and I didn't need that much. Yeah, so we have another pretty one Rebecca wants to show you. Look how pretty. Oops. Very pretty. And so if we have small ones like this, I mean, literally you could probably get one plate of the petroleum jelly with a scoop of petroleum jelly and have the kids each dip theirs in it. But it's faster if they each get their own plate. I'm going to get these large plates because I feel like it gives them plenty of workspace. Oh, how cool. Yes, another one. Hold on to it for a minute. So we will discuss this further at our meeting as far as the logistics go, but please make sure when it's cleanup time that everything gets thrown away. The containers of petroleum jelly, I will recollect from you. And I'm trying to think what else. And then obviously the containers of the plaster of Paris. I have a ton of plaster of Paris, but if you're only using 4 scoops of this per class, I feel like I'll probably fill this. I have all 3 of these containers. They'll be full, but I will have another box that looks like this, and it will have plenty of plaster of Paris in it. And as I've said in other videos, in the supply room, there is a table where typically Iris or another one of the moms will help just, gather up the materials. She's just showing you her shells. And that is where I will have extra material. So if you're ever in the middle of science and you run out of something, don't panic. Just send a mom to the supply room, and on that little table in the back of the room by the window, I believe, you'll see any of the extra materials for that week, and that way you can just grab anything extra that you need. But a little bit goes a long way, so I don't want to waste, and I think you know that. So just try to make sure that you don't throw everything away. But also, one thing that I'm noticing in certain weeks is that when there's leftover material, like this is already, oh no, it's still liquidy. Still liquidy. Interesting. That materials that would otherwise be trash are being left in the bin. And I realize you guys are busy, and I don't expect you to remember all the things, but it would be good just to real quick communicate that with the moms and dads in your room. As far as cleanup goes, is let them know what can be thrown away and let them know what needs to be collected and brought back to the supply room at the end of class time. So anyway, this will be a fun one because they'll have something to bring home. They can bring home the imprints. I don't know if we're going to reuse the clay or not, so I don't think they'll really need to bring that home. But for sure, the fossil that they make, and then the shell, I think is fine that they bring home, because I'll bring plenty. So, all right, that's it.